Derek Benningfield says, "Hi, Bill. Greetings from Canada. I love your show, and I have been following your work for about 4 years now." Thank you very much. It's very kind of you, Derek. You're one of the people who has helped me develop my conservatism to the point where it is now, although I have always been a conservative. I do have a question for you, though. As conservatives, we take pride in not being little control freak, free speech hating crybabies. How then do we ever allow ourselves to be governed by such people? That's a great question, and I addressed it a couple times in some of the speaking that I did during the weekend. We have such an enormous disadvantage. Conservatives have such an enormous disadvantage over compared to liberals, because we have businesses and we have lives, and many of us have religion, and many of us have hobbies and jobs and stuff. And religion and jobs and philosophy and hobbies are all rolled into one for far leftists. Politics is their religion. Politics is their business. Their A team goes into politics. Our C team goes into politics. And they just simply are very difficult to fight because they never give up. They're certainly not above cheating because they have this vision of the greater good. So if we have to steal a few votes in order to bring about paradise on earth, a small price to pay. Look, the real short answer to this, Derek, is the reason we let them rule us is because we play by the rules and they don't. We mind our own business and they don't. That's really pretty much it. But it's time for us to do something about this. It's past time. It's way past time. I think one of the things that we're seeing is that I take some satisfaction in, and I think actually is some hope, is that the left is just eating itself. It's all these people who've been fighting for progressive causes, like white males or white women, have been fighting for progressive causes for 40 years, are now being told to shut up by the monsters that they created because they're too privileged. And on one hand, they go, "Oh, you're right. No, I hadn't realized how privileged I was." And on the other hand, they come out and say things like, "But I've been fighting this fight for 50 years. I'm not a racist." Yes, you are. No, I'm not. How does it feel to be unjustly accused of racism? Not so good, huh? So while it just can't last, and everybody knows it, the reason we're so heavily armed and the reason we're running around with our hair on fire is because we can see what's happened in the past and what's coming. I had a Churchill quote that I'd never heard before, and I just really like it a lot. And it says, the longer you look back, the further you can look forward. And that's exactly right. I'm not as worried about, I'm much more worried than people on the street, not because of what's happening today, but because of what I see is going to happen in the future. This is not maintainable. It's simply not sustainable, if you'll pardon the expression. This kind of borrowing, this kind of moral decay, this kind of weakness, children who are 50, 60-year-old children, what are they going to do when they're 50 years old and haven't had listened to somebody who had a different opinion from them? They're unemployable. And I keep generalizing about the millennials. I'm talking about the cry bullies and stuff, and I just do need to stop every now and then and say I just met with a bunch of terrific young conservatives, and they're everywhere. And the soldiers and sailors and airmen, Marines, and Coast Guards people that we have out there right now are in many cases millennials, and they're the baddest asses we ever put out there. So I don't mean to keep generalizing, but the signs are not good. And and it's big things and it's little things. A week ago, there was a big announcement that said NASA's accepting applications for astronauts, and record numbers of people applied. And I thought, who are you kidding? What does NASA need astronauts for? NASA's got a bunch of astronauts already. NASA can't put our own astronauts onto our own space station. What the hell would NASA need a recruiting class of astronauts for? There are no plans for NASA to go back into space. No concrete plans. No launch systems that are under development. The only people that are going to get to go into space in the future, launch from the United States of America, will be riding on private space. They'll be riding on the Dragon capsule. They may be riding on something else that seems to be the only orbital option right now. So if I were you, I'd go work for SpaceX if you want to go into space. And again, it's heartbreaking. We're recruiting astronauts. For what? So you can wear a flight suit and go talk to high schools about science? We don't have a space program anymore. We have a space station, we just can't get to it. And what do you say about that? You know, it was, I think it was, the big argument is, was it ever worth it? Was it, a government program? I've heard that NASA's giving up more grants to private companies, and that's good, and that's certainly the future. And then, you see SpaceX do something like put a rocket into orbit and have the main stage come back and land on the pad it took off from. And as I said, on that afterburner, Russia can't do that, China can't do that. Russia and China can't do what a bunch of private citizens did. So, again, just to kind of tie it up in a bow, you've got the collectivist Russian space program, which are still flying, extremely effective, mind you. They're still flying the same basic booster that they put Sputnik into space in 1957. It's the same booster. And China's basically copying all this other stuff, and, China's done a couple of capsules in orbit and that sort of thing. But it's an individual named Elon Musk who had a vision that, hey, we can recover this booster and we're going to bring it down and land it. And he's not the only one. Bezos and Blue Horizon and all these guys. Virgin Galactic is there because of a vision of Richard Branson. These are individual people. Burt Rutan designed Spaceship One, which became the basis for Spaceship Two, because he'd always wanted to fly in space and he didn't see any way he could do it, so he just went out and built a space program. Not just a spaceship, a space program. And the astronaut that they picked was Bert's best friend who had come over, Mike Melville, who both of which are huge, probably the highest honor of my life to be able to say these are friends of mine. And Mike Melville came over from South Africa, had a few questions about the plans on the Long Easy, or maybe even the Very Easy, came and talked to Bert, never went home. They got to be best friends. Mike was test pilot on all this stuff. Mike was a chase pilot on Voyager. Mike and Bert stuck together, and when they needed a pilot to fly into outer space, a civilian, they picked a 60-something-year-old South African guy who's a high school dropout, I think, but happens to be the best natural pilot maybe in the world, built out of nothing but courage, this guy, and he's Bert's friend. And frankly, it's the same advice I would give you if you asked me about, should I come to Hollywood? Hollywood is looking for screenwriters. If Hollywood is looking for screenwriters, that means that you're going to write scripts that are going to sit on shelves and they're going to be turned down by 18-year-olds or 22-year-olds who are the reviewers, and one of them will get through, and maybe you'll get a script sold for $50,000 and it'll sit on a shelf forever, and it'll get optioned, and they'll buy it because they don't want anybody else to have it, but it won't get made. And if it 1 in a million it does get made, then you're going to take your serious, in-depth, wonderful story that you put your life into, and they're going to add a talking dog because they think it'll increase the box office. So in the same way that if you want to be an astronaut, I'd get cozy with SpaceX or XCore or Virgin or something, or start your own company. Same thing for movies. If you wanted to start movies and make movies, go find a car dealer in wherever you are. If you live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, find a couple of car dealers, convince them, do your research, get the numbers, go out there and convince them that this $800,000 project is going to make more money than it costs, and go and make it. Coming to Hollywood would be the worst possible thing. I know it's a little off topic, but that's the way it goes. These individuals are what makes this thing go around. And individuals like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and all the rest of them, and Andrew Carnegie, just went out and did it in business. But again, back to your question, Derek, the left doesn't do business. And you need to call it what it is. I mean, it's only a year or two ago that I really fully realized that I call it what it is. Progressives are socialists, and they want to tell everybody else what to do, because progressives want the things that conservatives have or that businessmen have. They're just either too stupid or too lazy or both to go out and earn it on their own. So they want to take it from other people. They want to steal it from people who do. It's the makers and the takers, just that simple. So we put up with it because we mind our own business. And you know what? Here's the other thing too. The reason we've put up with all of this chicanery, really, when you get right down to it, is because despite the fact that all of these things are eroding and the economy's in real trouble, life has never been this good for anybody. So we put up with it because it's not costing us anything. It's costing us a lot of angst and ideological angst, and it's costing us, sleepless nights. But when you get right down to it so far, you're life is as good as life has ever been on planet Earth. And so how ginned up are you going to get when life is this good? How likely are you to go man the barricades with a rifle when life is as good as it is? We are running around with our hair on fire because we can see that everything that made this good is not only under attack, it's just being actively destroyed. And we can look downstream and we can see what's coming. And these liberals can't or won't. So they just steal money, and doesn't belong to anybody. It's the government's money. And we don't do anything about it because it doesn't impact us. One of the things I set up in Oregon was if I could do two things to save the country, I would repeal the 17th Amendment, and that would give the states power back. The Senate would then be representing the state of California, not the people of California who are represented in the House, because the states are the only thing with the power to actually balance the federal government. And the second thing I said, most people would have thought, well, repeal the income tax, but I think actually it's simpler than that. I just think it should be against the law to have payroll withholdings. I think if every single person in the country got their full pay and 4 times a year had to write a check for $7,000 or $12 or whatever, 4 times a year, had to take money that was in the bank and send it to Washington and write that check out, then if you did that 4 times a year, there'd be a revolution. The beautiful thing for the progressives and for the Democrats on the left about payroll withholding is, let's say you make $600 a week. Well, and you ask somebody, what do you make? I make $600 a week. Is that what you go home with? Oh, God, no, I go home with $420. And so the government will take thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars from you, 40, 50% of your income, let's say. And then come April 15th, they give you $1,200 back of the $25,000 they've taken from you. And you go, woohoo, I'm rich. I'm getting a check. If you had to part with the money. See, the reason they get away with it is because you never touch it. You never touch the money. So, there they go. And Cheryl says, there'd be people who wouldn't save. Most people probably wouldn't save. But then, if you had to part with the money, actually part with it, then everybody in the country would start having to have some sense of, what am I buying with this money? What does this money get me? Where does it go? But we never touch it. And since we never touch it, it's not really ours. And since it's not really ours, we never miss it. That's it, really. We never touch it, so we never miss it. And it's a catastrophe.